It was a calm, sunny afternoon. I was relaxing inside the house when suddenly I heard my wife scream from outside. The sound was so loud and full of fear that my heart dropped. I rushed to the front yard, and what I saw made me freeze. Two men wearing cheap, fake HOA uniforms had my wife in handcuffs. They were pulling her toward a fake police car, treating her like she had done something terrible. She looked scared and confused. One of the men stepped close to me and pushed a stack of property papers into my chest. "If you want your wife back, sign these papers. If you refuse, something very bad will happen to her," he said with a cold voice, gripping her arm harder. I looked at them carefully. Their badges were plastic. Their shirts didn't match. Their belts were wrong. Nothing about them looked real. These weren't officers. These were scammers, dangerous ones. They thought they could scare me. They thought they could take my property by threatening my wife. But they had no idea who I was, the man they were trying to bully, and the police chief of the county. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me where you're watching from, and please hit subscribe for more stories where the good guys always win. It was a quiet afternoon, the kind of day when everything feels calm and safe. The sunlight was soft, the breeze was gentle, and my wife was outside watering the plants while I made tea inside. Nothing felt unusual, nothing felt dangerous. It was one of those afternoons where life seems simple. Then I heard her scream. Not a small cry, a loud, terrified scream that cut through the entire house like a knife. My heart stopped. The cup slipped from my hand and shattered on the floor, hot tea splashing everywhere, but I didn't even feel it. I ran straight toward the front yard, not thinking about anything except getting to her. The moment I stepped outside, I froze. Two men I had never seen before were standing in our yard wearing cheap, mismatched HOA uniforms. One had a crooked badge, the other had a belt 2 sizes too big. Their shirts didn't match, their boots were dirty, and nothing about them looked official. But what shocked me most was what they were doing. They had my wife in handcuffs. They were pulling her toward a fake police car, a beat-up sedan with a light bar taped to the roof. My wife looked terrified. Her eyes were wide, her hair messy from struggling, and she tried to pull away, but they held her tightly. "What are you doing?" I shouted. One of the men turned around and walked right up to me. He shoved a stack of papers against my chest so hard that I stepped back. His face was cold, his eyes full of threat. "If you want your wife back, sign these property papers. If you say no, something very bad will happen to her," he said, tightening his grip on her arm. My wife gasped in fear, her wrists shaking in the metal cuffs. I looked down at the papers. They were a mess, printed crooked, filled with spelling mistakes, and designed to look like a legal property transfer form. The signatures were fake. The dates were scratched out. The price had been written and rewritten with a pen. It was the kind of forgery a child could spot. "Who are you people?" I asked calmly, though anger was boiling inside me. "HOA enforcement," the tall one said proudly. I almost laughed. Their badges were plastic toys. Their uniforms weren't even the same color. Their fake police car had no plates. Everything about them screamed scam. They weren't officers. They weren't even skilled criminals. They were cowards pretending to have power. But they didn't know one important thing. The man they were threatening, me, wasn't helpless. I wasn't scared. I wasn't just another homeowner they could bully. I was the real owner of the property and the police chief of the whole county. Of course, they didn't know that yet. My wife looked at me, tears in her eyes. She whispered, "Don't sign, please. Don't sign." I could see her wrists turning red from the cuffs. I could see the fear shaking her body. The tall, fake officer waved the papers again. "Sign it now," he barked. "We don't want trouble, unless you want your wife to suffer." My jaw tightened, but I didn't react the way he expected. Instead, I looked around. Their fake patrol car was parked crookedly in my driveway. Their cheap boots left messy footprints on my grass. They were nervous, unbalanced. Their hands shook slightly. Their breathing was fast. These men weren't in control. They were pretending. The shorter man kept glancing at the road like he was waiting for someone, or maybe scared someone would show up. His uniform shirt was too small, stretching awkwardly across his chest. Sweat dripped from his forehead, even though the weather was cool. I took one slow step forward. The tall man pointed at my wife's handcuffs. "Don't come closer," he warned. "Sign the papers or she pays the price." His voice cracked when he said it. He wasn't as brave as he tried to sound. I raised my hand slightly, showing I wasn't going to rush him. You don't need to hurt her, I said softly. Let's talk. Sign, he shouted again, losing patience. I took a deep breath, keeping my emotions controlled. Inside, I was furious, not just because they tried to hurt my wife, but because they thought they could step onto my property and force me to surrender it. This wasn't just a crime, this was personal. The short officer pulled my wife closer to the car. She winced as the cuffs pressed tighter on her wrists. I could feel my blood boiling. Please, she whispered. Just don't let them hurt me. I looked at her, then back at the two men, and then slowly, very slowly, I reached into my jacket. Both fake officers instantly panicked. Hey, what are you doing? The tall one shouted, stepping back. They thought I was pulling out a pen, but I pulled out something else entirely. My real police badge. Their faces went pale, their mouths opened, their fake confidence shattered instantly. You're... The shorter one stuttered. Yes, I said calmly. I'm the... Police chief. They froze. The papers fell from the tall man's hand and scattered across the ground. The shorter man loosened his grip on my wife, his hands shaking. Everything changed in that moment. They thought they had power. They thought they had control. They thought they could scare us. But now they knew the truth. They had just threatened the wife of the one man in this county they could never afford to cross, the man who could put them behind bars, and I was about to do exactly that. The taller fake officer kept my wife in a tight, painful grip. Her hands were locked behind her, the metal cuffs biting into her wrists. She tried to take a small step away from him, but he yanked her arm, making her gasp. The second man walked back and forth in front of us, acting like he was guarding the place, but everything about him looked wrong. His walk, his stance, even the way he held his fake badge. He didn't look like a real officer. He looked like someone trying very hard to pretend. I picked up the property papers they had thrown at me. The more I looked at them, the more ridiculous they seemed. The words weren't even lined up properly. There were spelling mistakes everywhere. The official signature at the bottom was clearly written by someone who didn't know how real paperwork worked. Someone had scratched out the price of my house 3 times and written new amounts in messy handwriting. They didn't even try to make it look real. The tall man took a threatening step forward. Sign it, he demanded again. Right now, I stared at him, not scared, but angry, deeply angry. Why my house? Why us? I asked slowly, trying to make him talk. He gave a small, cold smirk. Because your wife was outside alone, easy target. Then he leaned forward slightly. And because you look like the kind of man who would do anything to save her, that makes you easy to control. My jaw clenched. My wife's breathing grew faster. I could see fear in her eyes, but also trust. She knew I would not let anything happen to her. They didn't know who I was. They didn't know what I could do. They didn't know how close they were to being in handcuffs themselves. I took a deep, slow breath. I had to keep calm. I had to keep them believing they were in control long enough for me to flip the situation. Let me talk to her before I sign, I said carefully. The tall man hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Fine, but don't try anything stupid. He thought he was winning. He thought I was scared. He thought I was going to give him exactly what he wanted. He was wrong. I stepped closer to my wife. Her eyes shimmered with tears, but her voice was steady as she whispered, Please, don't sign anything. They're lying. I know, I whispered back. I won't. The shorter fake officer moved closer, watching us nervously. His hands were shaking slightly. His eyes darted toward the street again and again, like he expected someone else to show up, or like he was scared someone might show up. I could tell he wasn't built for crime. He was just following someone else's orders. The tall man got impatient. All right, that's enough. Sign it. I still don't understand, I said calmly, refusing to pick up the pen. What happens to her if I don't sign? He grabbed my wife's arm again and twisted it slightly, making her cry out. My blood boiled, but I held myself back. I couldn't reveal who I was yet. Not without the right timing. Something very bad happens, he said coldly. You don't want that. The second fake officer nodded, trying to look tough. Just sign, it's easier. Easier for them, maybe, not for me. I looked at their uniforms again. The patches were glued on. One of their belts had a broken clasp. The tall man's badge had a sticker peeling off the corner. How hot? They fooled anyone? Then something else hit me. A symbol tattooed on the tall man's wrist. A small, sharp mark shaped like a triangle with a slash through it. I had seen that symbol before. It belonged to a small group we had been tracking for months. a group involved in property scams in rural areas, a group that used fear instead of weapons, a group that threatened families to get signatures on stolen deeds. These weren't random men. This was part of a bigger operation, and by threatening my wife, they had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Last chance, the tall man said again. Sign the papers or what? I asked calmly. What are you really planning to do? His face twitched. He didn't expect me to call his bluff. He looked at his partner for support, but the other man looked even more nervous now, shifting his weight from foot to foot. Just sign, the tall one shouted, losing control. I slowly reached into my jacket. Both men tensed instantly. The tall one screamed, "Hey, don't try anything." The short one stepped back, raising his hands defensively. They thought I was grabbing a pen. They thought I was ready to give up, but instead, I pulled out my real badge. The sun hit the golden shield, and for the first time, both fake officers understood exactly how badly they had messed up. Their eyes widened, their breathing stopped. The tall one's fake confidence shattered like glass. You're... The short man stuttered, backing away. Yes, I said. My voice was calm, controlled, powerful. I'm the police chief. My wife let out a breath of relief. The shorter fake officer's legs almost buckled. The tall one stared at me as if I had just turned into someone else completely. You kidnapped my wife, I said. You threatened her life, and you tried to steal my property. The tall man swallowed hard. For a moment he didn't move, then he I did exactly what cowards do when their lies fall apart. He turned and ran. The moment I held up my badge, time felt like it stopped. The two fake officers stared at the gold shield as if it were a weapon. Their faces turned pale. Their hands shook. My wife let out a breath she had been holding for too long. Relief mixed with fear in her eyes. She knew the situation had changed, but she also knew it wasn't over yet. The tall man blinked twice, struggling to speak. You're the... Yes, I said calmly. The police chief. My voice didn't have to be loud. The truth carried enough force. The shorter man stepped back instinctively, almost tripping over his own feet. His fake badge bounced against his chest like a toy. He looked from my badge to the tall man, as if silently asking, "What do we do now?" I stepped closer to them, slow and steady. "Who sent you?" I asked again, this time with authority, not curiosity. Neither answered. The tall man swallowed hard, trying to recover his fake confidence. "Look, we didn't know. We didn't mean..." "That's enough," I said sharply. "Hands where I can see them." For a moment they didn't move. Their bodies were frozen between fear and stupidity. My wife watched anxiously, her hands still locked in the handcuffs, her wrists red and tender. "Do it," I said again, louder. Their hands slowly lifted, but as their arms came up, something in their eyes changed. Fear shifted into panic. Panic shifted into desperation, and desperation makes people dangerous. The tall man suddenly barked, "Run!" Before I could react, he shoved his partner hard, knocking him sideways into the yard. The shorter man fell into the grass with a thud, letting out a small cry of surprise. The tall man sprinted toward the back of the house, fast, wild, determined. My wife screamed, "He's running!" I turned just in time to see him disappear around the corner. The house, crashing through bushes like an animal escaping a trap. The smaller fake officer scrambled back to his feet, shaking violently. His eyes darted everywhere. He didn't know whether to run, fight, or cry. He ended up standing perfectly still, breathing fast and shallow. "Don't move," I ordered. He didn't. He couldn't. He lifted both hands high, stuttering. I didn't want to do this. He made me. I didn't want to hurt anyone." His voice cracked. His face twisted with fear. He looked less like a criminal and more like a scared kid dragged into something he didn't understand. But that didn't excuse what he had done. "You put your hands on my wife," I said. "That makes you responsible." He nodded quickly, tears forming in his eyes. I'm sorry, please don't let him leave me here, but I didn't have time for him right now." The tall man, the dangerous one, was getting away, and running criminals do stupid things. They trip, they attack, they hide, they make mistakes, and mistakes can get people hurt. I looked at my wife. "Stay here, don't move." She nodded, still breathing hard. "Be careful," she whispered. I handed her my phone. "Call backup. Tell them we have 2 suspects, one fleeing on foot." Then I sprinted around the corner of the house, following the direction the tall man had run. The backyard was a mess of trees, rocks and uneven ground. The tall man's footsteps were easy to hear. Crunching leaves, snapping branches, heavy breaths. He wasn't thinking, just running, but I knew this land better than he did. Behind the house, the ground sloped downward, leading into a narrow path between two rows of pine trees. I followed it, staying low, moving fast. Halfway down the path, I spotted him. He was struggling to climb up a rocky hill, slipping with every step. His fake uniform tore on a branch. One of his plastic badges fell off and rolled down the hill. He cursed loudly, grabbing at anything he could to keep himself upright. "Stop!" I shouted. "You're not getting away!" He didn't stop. He didn't even look back. That told me everything. He wasn't just scared of being arrested. He was scared of someone else, someone he worked for, someone who had sent him here. When people run that hard, they aren't running from the police. They're running from their boss. He tried to climb higher, but the ground slipped beneath him. He fell sideways, rolled twice, and hit the dirt hard. The air flew out of him in a painful wheeze. He groaned, clutched his ribs, and tried to stand again. I reached him before he could get up. "Don't move," I warned, but he swung his arm wildly, trying to hit me. It was a weak, uncoordinated punch, the kind thrown by someone fueled by fear, not training. I grabbed his wrist, twisted gently but firmly, and pushed him down. He hit the ground again, gasping. Before he could fight more, I snapped handcuffs onto his wrists. "It's over," I said. "No, no," he breathed, shaking his head violently. "You don't understand. He'll kill me. Who?" I demanded. He looked up at me with terrified eyes. "Dalton, he's the one who told us to take your house. He's watching everything. He said if we fail, if we get caught," he trailed off, trembling. So that was it. The tattoo, the fake uniforms, the scam in the papers, the fear in their eyes. It all pointed to one man, Dalton, the leader of a small but dangerous scam ring we had been trying to catch for months. "Where is he?" I asked. The tall man swallowed hard and nodded toward the trees. "He's nearby, hidden. He has a place in the woods. He sees everything." I tightened his cuffs slightly and pulled him to his feet. "Good. Then I'll see him too." The tall man shook uncontrollably. "You don't know him like we do. He's not afraid of the police." He looked straight at me. "You should be afraid of him." I stared back, calm and unshaken. "He should be afraid of me." I dragged him back toward the house. The forest felt colder now. A storm wasn't coming from the sky. It was coming from the man hiding somewhere in the trees. This wasn't just a scam anymore. This was a hunt. And I was done being the prey. Dragging the tall fake officer back toward my house, I could see my wife standing near the porch, her hands finally free, holding the phone I had given her. She looked shaken but safe. The shorter fake officer stood frozen in the yard, hands raised high, too scared to even breathe properly. His lips trembled, and he wouldn't look directly at me. He stared at the ground as if hoping it would open and swallow him. As I stepped onto the porch with the tall man in cuffs, my wife ran toward me and wrapped her arms around me. Her body shook with leftover fear. "Are you okay?" I asked softly. She nodded, but her voice cracked. I thought something was going to happen." I put a hand on her cheek. "Not while I'm here," the tall fake officer growled under his breath. "You don't understand. You've made everything worse." I pushed him forward. "Worse for who? You?" He didn't answer. His eyes darted left and right as if expecting someone to jump out of the bushes. Someone he feared more than me. I stepped away from my wife and looked at both men. It was time to end the lies. I pulled the tall man's fake badge off his shirt and held it up. It bent in my hand, cheap plastic, worthless. The sunlight revealed a sticker peeling off the corner. The short man winced when he saw it exposed. I raised my voice so both could hear clearly. "You kidnapped my wife. You tried to force me to sign my property away. You threatened her life. And you pretended to be law enforcement." The tall man looked away, jaw tight. The short one whispered, I didn't know she was your wife." I glared at him. "That does not make it better." My wife, standing safely behind me now, said, "They dragged me across the yard. They told me if you didn't sign, I would be taken away forever." Her voice trembled again. Rage sparked inside me, hot and sharp. I stepped closer to the fake officers. "Put your hands where I can see them," the tall man whispered. No, this can't be happening. Hands up, now." My voice thundered through the yard. The shorter one instantly lifted his hands high, shaking, but the tall one hesitated, his eyes darting toward the woods behind the house. He was thinking about running again. He was calculating distance, terrain, timing. He was planning something reckless. Before he made a move, I continued, on the ground. Both of you. The shorter man dropped to his knees so fast he almost fell forward. His hands trembled as he placed them on top of his head, but the tall one stood frozen, his breath loud, his eyes fixed on the tree line. "Don't do it," I said. "It won't end well for you." His chest rose and fell rapidly. Sweat dripped down his temple. He wasn't thinking clearly, he was thinking desperately. "Dalton will kill me," he whispered, trembling. "You don't get it, you don't understand. He'll kill me if I get arrested. So that was it. The fear gripping him wasn't from being caught. It was from Dalton, the man behind this operation, the mastermind, the leader, the one calling the shots from the shadows. My suspicion was right. This wasn't just a simple scam. It was a bigger network. But before I could ask more, the tall man exploded into motion. He swung his body sideways and bolted toward the woods again, running harder than before. His strides were wild, desperate. He didn't care about rocks, branches, or injuries. He crashed through bushes, sending leaves flying behind him. My wife gasped. The shorter man cried, "Please, don't let him leave me here with Dalton." I moved instantly. The tall man might have been fast, but he wasn't trained. His steps were loud. His movement was clumsy, and his panic made him predictable. I chased him through the yard, my boots hitting the ground hard. "Stop!" I shouted, but fear made him deaf. He reached the edge of the woods and stumbled over a fallen branch, barely catching himself. Then he took off again, crashing into the darker part of the forest. I was right behind him. Branches scraped my arms. Pine needles hit my face. The earth was uneven, but I knew this land. He didn't. The forest swallowed us both. Two shadows moving between tall trees, one running recklessly, the other pursuing with purpose. He looked back once, just once. And that was his mistake. His foot caught a root buried under the leaves. He flew forward, slamming into the ground with a painful cry. I reached him in seconds, grabbing his arm before he could scramble away. "Let go," he yelled, kicking wildly. I pinned him to the ground, careful not to injure him more than necessary, and snapped the cuffs tighter around his wrists. "It's over," I said firmly. No, it's not," he cried. "Dalton will never let this go. He'll come for me. He'll come for you." His voice echoed through the forest, swallowed by the trees. Fear of Dalton controlled every part of him, his breath, his thoughts, his decisions. He wasn't just scared, he was terrified. I pulled him up to his feet. "You should have thought about that before you touched my wife." I marched him back toward the house. As we stepped out of the trees, I saw the shorter, fake cop still on his knees, hands on his head, shaking violently. My wife stood nearby, watching every movement, waiting for me. The tall man saw her and dropped his head, ashamed and terrified. I pushed him down next to the other man. Both knelt in the dirt now, one crying softly, the other breathing hard, defeated. I looked between them. "This is just the beginning," I said coldly. "You're going to tell me everything about Dalton, every detail, every lie, every plan." The tall one closed his eyes. "Dalton won't let us talk," he whispered. I stepped closer, towering over both of them. "He won't have a choice," I said. "Not anymore." The mountains around us felt suddenly quiet, like they were listening. This fight was no longer about a fake HOA scam. This was a war with a man who thought he controlled everything, and now he had my full attention. The tall, fake officer's scream echoed in the trees as he ran, crashing through branches and dry leaves like a wild animal trying to escape a trap. His fear pushed him faster than any training ever could. He didn't look back. He didn't plan where he was going. He just ran, but he didn't know the woods the way I did. Behind me, my wife shouted my name, her voice still shaking from everything she had just gone through. The shorter fake officer remained on his knees in the yard, hands on his head, frozen in fear. I couldn't stay with them, not yet. I needed to stop the man who started this madness in my yard. I sprinted after him. The cold air hit my face as I entered the trees. The ground was uneven, covered with fallen branches, pine needles and old roots. The forest was thick, and the tall trees blocked the sunlight, turning everything into shadows. But I knew these woods, every trail, every hill, every hiding spot. The tall fake officer did not. He was panicking, running blindly, scraping his face on branches, stumbling over rocks. His breath was loud and ragged. Every few steps he muttered the same thing. He's going to kill me. Dalton's going to kill me. So Dalton truly was the man behind this, someone they feared, more than the police, more than prison, more than anything. The path ahead bent downhill sharply. The man didn't expect it. He tripped over a large root and fell hard, rolling onto his side with a painful grunt. He struggled to push himself up, dirt sticking to his fake uniform. "Stop running," I commanded. He scrambled like a terrified child. "Please, don't take me in. Dalton will come after me. You don't know him. You should have thought about that before you kidnapped my wife," I snapped. I lunged forward, grabbed his arm, and pulled him down. He kicked wildly, flailing his arms, but fear made him sloppy, and within moments I flipped him onto his stomach and locked the steel cuffs around his wrists. The forest went quiet as he stopped struggling, his breath shaking. "It's over," I said firmly. No, you don't understand," he cried, tears mixing with dirt on his cheeks. "Dalton told us. He told us to pick houses where the owners were alone. He told us no one would fight back. If he finds out we failed, Dalton won't be the one dealing with you now," I said. He squeezed his eyes shut, crying harder. "You don't get it. This wasn't my idea. If I didn't do what he wanted, he said he'd make me disappear in the woods." The woods around us felt colder suddenly, as if the trees themselves had heard the name Dalton. A shadowy figure, a man hiding somewhere among the mountains, someone they followed out of fear, not loyalty. "We'll handle Dalton," I said. "Right now, you're done?" I pulled him to his feet. He stumbled and leaned heavily against a tree, panting. His fake badge hung crooked, cracked from the fall. His uniform sleeve was torn. His boots were muddy, his knees scraped. He looked nothing like an authority figure now, just a scared man who made terrible choices. As I walked him back toward the house, I kept a tight grip on his arm. He didn't try to run this time. The fight was gone. The fear was still there, but the strength behind it had vanished. When we stepped out of the trees, my wife was waiting. Seeing her face was like a breath of fresh air after being underwater. She stood strong, but her eyes still held the fear of what had happened. The shorter fake officer was still on the ground, hands on his head, shaking like a leaf. The moment he saw the tall one in cuffs, he broke down completely. "I didn't want to do this," he cried. "He made us. Dalton made us. Please don't hurt me." My wife stepped back from him, disgust and fear in her eyes. The shorter man's face was streaked with tears, his hands trembling. He was terrified, not of prison, but of the man who controlled him. I positioned both fake officers near the porch and kept them in sight. The tall one dropped to his knees again, exhausted. The shorter one whimpered softly, looking around like shadows were chasing him. Then the air changed. A distant sound rolled across the hills. Sirens. Backup was coming. My wife finally allowed herself to breathe. She stepped closer to me and held my arm. Thank God you're here. I told you," I said quietly. "I would never let anything happen to you." She nodded, tears filling her eyes. The two fake officers lowered their heads in defeat. For the tall one, it felt like the end of the world. For the short one, it felt like a beginning. A chance to break free from Dalton's hold. As we waited for the patrol cars to arrive, I noticed something. The tall man kept staring at the woods, not at me, not at my wife, not at the sirens, just the woods, like he expected someone to appear or feared someone was already watching. "Dalton is out there," he whispered, voice shaking. "He knows we failed. He knows." I stepped closer, my voice cold and steady. "Good," I said. "Then he'll know I'm coming for him next." At that moment, the sirens grew louder, echoing across the mountains. Backup was seconds away, and Dalton's time was running out. The sound of sirens grew louder and louder until it filled the whole mountainside. The echo bounced between the trees, rolling across the valley like thunder. My wife stood beside me, holding my arm tightly. The two fake officers knelt in the dirt with their hands up, shaking like leaves in a storm. Finally, the patrol cars appeared at the end of the road. 2, then 3, then a fourth. Blue and red lights flashed across the trees, painting the forest in sharp colors. The cars stopped in a perfect line, and officers stepped out quickly, moving with purpose. "Chief!" one of them called. "We got your call. What's the situation?" I pointed at the two men on the ground. Fake HOA officers, kidnapping, attempted property theft, threats against my wife, possibly connected to a larger criminal ring run by someone named Dalton. The younger officer's eyes widened. The older ones nodded grimly. They knew about the Dalton case, the rumors, the raids that never found him, the people too scared to talk. 2 officers moved to the tall man first. "Hands behind your back," one ordered. The tall man didn't resist. He didn't even look up. His face was pale, and his lips trembled. He looked like someone who had already seen his future and didn't like it. As they cuffed him, he whispered something without raising his head. "I told him not to pick this house. I told him, but no one listened," the shorter fake officer cried openly as 2 other officers approached him. "Please, please, don't send me back there. Dalton will kill me. I swear I didn't want to hurt anyone. Save it for the station," the officer said firmly. They lifted him off the ground and walked him toward the patrol car. His legs were weak, almost collapsing under him. My wife watched quietly. Her hands still shook slightly, but she looked stronger now, safer. She leaned her head on my shoulder as I wrapped an arm around her. "You're okay now," I whispered. She nodded softly. "I knew you'd come. I knew it." I kissed the top of her head. "I always will." Behind us, the officers began collecting all the evidence. The forged papers, the fake badges, the badly printed uniforms, the cheap handcuffs they used on her. Bags zipped shut, cameras clicked, radios buzzed. The scene transformed from chaos into organized law enforcement. One officer approached me. "Chief, the tall one is talking. He says Dalton has a hidden base somewhere in the woods, says Dalton watches the houses from afar, chooses weak targets, then sends men like these to scare them into signing." I nodded slowly. "That sounds right. The tall one mentioned the same thing earlier." The officer lowered his voice. "He says Dalton knew about you, and that he wasn't happy someone like you moved out here. He wanted your land specifically." My jaw tightened. So Dalton had been watching me, watching us, waiting for a moment when my wife was alone, waiting for an opening. He had made a mistake. He had sent the wrong men to the wrong home. Another officer walked up. "Chief, we're ready to transport them." I stepped closer as they pushed the tall, fake officer into the back seat of one of the cruisers. He finally looked up at me, his eyes red, his face twisted in fear. "You were the chief all along," he whispered. "Yes," I said, "and you threatened my family. That ends today." The officer shut the door hard, and the cruiser's engine rumbled to life. The shorter fake officer screamed from the second car, "Please, don't let Dalton find me. Don't." The door closed on him, too. The cars slowly rolled away, tires crunching over gravel, lights washing the trees in color. The forest returned to silence, except for the gentle hum of radios and the whisper of wind through the pine needles. I took a deep breath. My wife stepped closer, wrapping her arms around my waist. "Is it really over?" she asked softly. "For them," I said. "But Dalton, he's still out there." She looked up at me with worried eyes. "He'll come after us?" "Not if I go after him first." She opened her mouth to speak, but stopped when she saw the look in my eyes, calm, determined, unshaken. I wasn't just a husband anymore. I wasn't just the owner of the property. I was the police chief, and someone had threatened my family. Officers finished packing equipment. One of them walked over. "Chief, what now?" I looked toward the dark rows of trees where Dalton was hiding, somewhere past the ridge, watching his world fall apart. "We find him," I said, "tonight, tomorrow. Doesn't matter, he doesn't get to hide in my county anymore." The officer nodded. "We'll follow your lead." As the last cruiser drove down the mountain road, the flashing lights disappeared one by one, swallowed by distance and darkness. The air grew still again. The house, the yard, the trees, everything returned to peaceful silence. My wife leaned her head on my chest. I held her tightly. "We're safe now," she whispered. "For now." I said, "But justice isn't finished yet." I looked at my house, my home, and then back at the woods. Dalton had started something. Now I was going to finish it. Tonight the mountains were calm again. But tomorrow, justice would walk into the woods, and Dalton would finally meet the real owner of this land.